And we are live
Cool.
with Audiophiles Anonymous. Tyler, Chrono. What's up, everyone in the chat?
Hello, hello. How's everyone doing today as far as this wonderful Thursday morning? Start with Andrew, and since we can see your face.
Chrono is still a like the cartoon character.
Yeah.
Doing well this morning. I mean, doing as well as can be. We had the very exciting first game of the Stanley Cup playoffs for Vancouver Canucks last night, so I watched that, which I know is very exciting for everybody else south of the border, but for us Canadians, it's a big deal, especially those of us who live in Vancouver.
That's very awesome. Yeah, it was fun to see you guys' excitement and reaction.
Yeah, we were excited. So yeah, doing really well there, and just sort of getting into the swing of the day and figuring out. Just posted the LCD XC review recently. I'm sure you guys have seen it, but figuring out. I think we'll have another video here sometime tomorrow, or before the end of the week, ideally as well. So putting that together, and it's going to feature the HD6XX. So that's why I'm wearing it today.
Very cool. I'm getting some listening time with it.
Oh yeah.
And then what about you, Chrono? What's on your plate today? How you been today? It's actually a different area, but go ahead, tell us what's going on.
Well, first I'd like to comment that a webcam is in the works. I'm looking up some right now because I think it's gonna get a little plain if I just keep looking like my little pixel dude here. But it's just had a relaxing day. Like, mostly gaming. Probably gonna go out and get some steak to eat for lunch afterwards.
Nice.
Cool beans.
Nothing too exciting.
Very cool. Very cool. Nothing really new with me. I've been woke up early, did some samurai and coffee this morning after I took my pup out at 5 this morning, and then
samurai and coffee is the new.
Is that playing Ghost of Tsushima?
Yeah, Ghost of Tsushima, and then from there the daughter usually wakes up around 6 something, so I usually get back an hour in of gaming, and then go deal with her, and then did some gym time, and then from gym to shower to editing photos and prepping for that stuff, and then also trying to figure out what I want to do next for some new cool composition photo stuff. But outside of that, that's pretty much where I'm at right now, and it's turned into a beautiful day. It was freezing last night, but today it's turned out beautiful. So
the gym scares me right now.
Well, I'm just doing TRX in my garage.
Oh, okay.
So
I was gonna say it's not like I go normally anyways, but now is like even less likely.
Oh yeah, no, the gym started scaring me, before quarantine as well. I'd say after the holidays of 2019. I was like, I think it's not for me.
I miss picking up heavy things and putting them down for sure. But
well, I got the LCD XC for that, so I just sent the headphone off, so
there you go.
Don't have that one anymore.
Or something like that.
Yeah, I have the Rad Zero. Is that how this is called? Rad Zero.
Yeah,
that's on their way. So heavy lifting.
Yeah. Although that one, I don't know. I don't find it as heavy as the. It's a heavy boy, but it's not as heavy, I think, as the LCD XC.
Very cool. And then, hey, real quick, everyone in the chat, how's the sound and video? Just because I've been playing with networking, and I want to make sure that it's working right now. Because I found out my other router was dying on me, apparently, because it was progressively getting worse as I continued to stream. So, but hopefully that's good for you guys. And then back to you guys. Real quick, some topics for today that could be fun to discuss is... I guess you guys want to start with the Hi-Fi Man announcement? Is that what?
Yeah, let's get into that.
Let's dive into the Hi-Fi Man HE510.
No, HE. Wait, it's the R10.
R10.
HE R10.
R10. Thank you.
Yeah.
So that one is the Sony. And correct me if I'm wrong. The Sony patent expired on the MDR R10, which was back in 1989, I think, was considered one of the best headphones you could get.
It's older,
and so
vintage.
It was one of the first cellulose headphones.
I didn't dig into that too much, but that could be right. And
so then they only made 2,000 of them too. So there's also a weird prestige thing of like, oh, I have this thing and it's amazing and you can't hear it, so you don't know. Like, so there's some of that prestige things going on.
It's the elitism.
Like, a little bit, right? So I don't know. So what's your guys' hot take on that? Because I think real quick, R10, the Hifiman announced recently. It's going to be 2 models. One's going to be a dynamic closed back, and the other one's going to be a planar dynamic, and they're varying in prices. I think somewhere from 1,500 for the dynamic and 4 to 5. My hands, 4 to 5 in the
hand autofocus.
Yeah. Dang it! I changed up my autofocus a little bit. It was like now it's like super responsive where it wasn't before.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyways, so that's where we're at. So we resolve. Hot take.
Hot take. Okay, so it's funny when you think about all of the like weirdness surrounding the naming convention that they've gone for here, because if they hadn't done that, everybody would be really excited about a Hifiman planar flagship, planar magnetic flagship closed back. And I was telling Fangbian this at CanJam. I was like, look, you're getting into the wireless thing, right?
Yeah.
But can we get like a Hifiman flagship closed back? And that's the other thing with them, is that they are wireless capable, potentially, with the Blue Mini, which, as much as I was not a huge fan of the Deva for its sound quality, the Blue Mini, like I like the Deva sound quality, but for the price, I thought it wasn't as competitive as something like the Sundara, which is like a little more. But the Blue Mini is actually really, really cool. I mean, the fact that they were able to pack that powerful of amplifier in such a small device is really exciting. And that really, like, in my mind, that is a really good direction for wireless in general, because you're not having to pack it into the cup of the headphone. You're having to put like electronics into the headphone, like you do with something like the Mobius. So and then it doesn't mess with the acoustics or anything like that. So the fact that they're doing that is really exciting there on the R10. But so with all of that, I know there was some talk about how the patent's expired, and so it's not a problem. Sony can't sue Fangbian and all this stuff. I still think that in spite of that, it was a really like questionable move, because everybody in the space, all the fans, all the community knows about this, right? At least, and even if you don't, right,
it's a legendary enough that people can pick up on quick. That wait a second,
and you can see photos of it, and in my mind, it's like, this is not, they're not paying homage to it. They're basically just throwing it in the face of them, saying, not only are we ripping off the look and the design, but we're also gonna be like, hey, we're calling it this, which was your legendary headphone. So to me, it's like, I don't know why. It has to do something with like the culture around this kind of stuff, but for competition and whatnot. But I just don't know why they went that route, because it's very likely that these are going to be really great sounding headphones. At least I don't know yet, because we haven't tried them, but like, based on what I saw from the frequency response, it looks quite a bit better than that of the R10. That was the weird thing, is the R10, as much as it's a legendary headphone,
it's
the
a
Sony
30-year-old headphone, for crying out loud.
Yeah, and it's not really that good by today's standards. So I still, it blows my mind why they did that. They probably did that because they saw the design and were like, this is an easy design implementation. And then they're like, all right, we might as well call it the same thing. But anyways, that's my hot take, that this could sound really good. This could be exactly what we want. But the naming convention was a bit of a misstep.
Yeah, I can concur with that. I think, Chrono, I'm going to respond to Andrew real quick in regards to that a little bit on my topic real quick. But I think another thing that's what's I think happening to some degree is they're playing on the prestige of it, right? Like, so this is a very prestigious headphone, very limited quantities, and there's a lot of people that want this, right? And then there's also the factor of now you can get it again, essentially. I mean, especially if it's a 1-to-1 copy, like to some level, with maybe some better improvements.
You can get a knockoff that likely sounds a lot better.
Yeah, and so with that, I think it's. I don't want to sound like a jerk here, but it can also be considered like a quick, easy crash grab too to some people. Not that that they're producing a good headphone potentially, but like it also is it's a low hanging fruit, I guess, if that makes sense.
I have to wonder like where the reaction is, or what the reaction is like for some of the Chinese market. Because
I was gonna say that's the part of the market that's gonna be like
totally fine with it, right? Like, I think it's maybe the Western audience. Yeah, and I think the Western audience is sort of like, what? Why would you do that? Right? So yeah, the cash grab aspect of it, there's a lot of that in there where I just go, I don't know about this. Like, I think we see through this a little bit. And,
I mean, I think I think you nailed on the head too, the homage factor. Like, if it would have been a true homage, I think they wouldn't have called it the same name, more or less. I think they could have worded it better. They could have done some different things. But anyways,
a lot of drama in that thread too. But like to me, I'm just but I'm just mostly excited.
Like, oh, this could be cool. This could be no, fuck it, we're done. This is bad.
But see, like for me, I'm really excited about the headphones. Like I think they could they might be exactly what I want, right? Like I just finished reviewing the XC from Audeze, which was a fantastic experience, a closed back planar that it does everything that I wanted it to. It's brilliant. It's just too heavy. And then Hifiman coming out with something that could beat it potentially. I'm super excited about that. And so I think, for all this stuff, just like I was saying, like if you just ignore all the questionable marketing and naming and all this stuff, this could be a really, really good headphone. So we just have to kind of wait and see on that. But anyways, I'll let Chrono.
And real quick, Marcello also makes a good point too. Bad publicity is still publicity, right? They're still being put in the forefront of the news.
We're all paying attention to this.
We're talking about it right now.
Yeah, it's drama, and we're all paying attention to it.
Exactly.
So.
We love drama.
Feng Bian actually did a good thing there.
Well, wasn't there a picture where he was actually holding
both of them?
The real, the real art.
Yeah. Like he actually bought the originals.
It's brazen.
It's brazen.
It's the word.
That's a key. I'd actually be fly on the wall in Sony going, wait, who the F let go of that patent?
But like, real quick about that, do you guys know, like, if regardless of whether or not the patent expires,
you can re-up it. You can.
But is it the patent on the design or is it on the name, or because like that I would wonder about.
I'm not positive
because the design's the same still, right? Like I wonder is
the
that
design's almost like, I mean, the band is different, but I mean essentially the cup is the same, and I think they did a similar. I think they did almost everything here the same, but I think this part's different. And then obviously
it's the Deva headband. I think. But,
that's the Deva one.
I could have asked my wife, but I'm pretty sure. Ask the lawyer, see what she says.
I'd be curious about that. Like, can they get in trouble for the naming convention alone?
I think it's different enough that someone could probably
because it's HER10, right?
So like it's different enough that they could be like it's like that fine line, right? They're walking the fine line. But Chrono. But I mean, what do you think, man? What as a young buck in the audiophile world and fresh off the street of beats to true audio. No.
Hey, it was both. Just kidding. I did have some beats too, and I enjoyed them quite a bit. I have no problems with them. And I like Dr. Dre's music a lot anyway. So well, it's Apple now, not Dr. Dre, isn't it?
True.
Kind of, first of all, I agree. I think I agree with everything that's been said so far about it. It was shocking for me. It was like, why do they need this? Like, to me, like Hifiman has made very good headphones recently that I personally enjoy, like the Sundara, the Ananda, and I hear great things all the time about the Aria. So I was like, they make all these fairly unique and already very good headphones that have garnered them some good rep recently, So it's like, why do they do this? It's like, why do they need this in their, as part of their selection? And of course, the fact that it's so similar to the R10, or rather they were, it's
copy practice.
Yeah. Well, I didn't want to say, but it's like, why would he announce it like that?
Yeah, that was kind of odd.
The other thing with this though, that I think people aren't talking about this enough, but the $1,500 one or 12 or whatever the more modest priced one is.
Cellulose
dynamic. Is that Hifiman's first dynamic driver headphone?
No, they have one before, I think.
No, and they have one with mass drop actually.
Yeah, they have a.
What is that one?
I'll look it up right now, but I know they have like a $80 one on mass drop.
They had.
Really?
They had a dynamic driver before too. Yeah.
But it's their first high end dynamic driver. Like audiophile. Yeah. Okay.
Which I'm pretty sure the one that's on drop or whatever one, the previous one, did not get good reviews. It was, I mean, obviously you haven't.
No, I haven't even heard of it.
The Hifiman HE35X. That is a dynamic driver headphone.
Never heard. Oh, it's a dynamic. Oh, wow. Okay. Did not realize that. I always assumed that their whole thing, because they're set up for manufacturing planar magnetic stuff. Like that's their process.
Well, I mean, that's kind of their thing, right?
Yeah. So what I wonder, I mean, if this is biocellulose or something with biocellulose, are they do they just buy an off-the-shelf driver? Like, is that where that's coming from, or is this something new?
Or maybe
That's
when they could have easily too, if they, because they have the other one, right? They have the original. I wonder if they could have gone back to the original
Yeah.
manufacturer and just been like,
Maybe.
hey, what's the latest and greatest version of this?
Yeah,
If
because it's
still
not like
around.
Sony is building the biocellulose drivers, most likely, right?
Yeah, probably not.
This is, yeah.
I mean, they could.
I know
But
Fostex does a lot of biocellulose, so
they could have done something like reverse engineer it, see where it could be improved or
yeah, it
something
could
like
be.
that.
But I'd be fascinated to see something if it's actually developed, like if the driver itself is designed by Hi-Fi Man. That would be really cool, because then, you know, they're now into the dynamic driver space as well, which they traditionally haven't been.
Yeah, the closed back dynamic at that price, what's in that price range? There's the Icon.
Atticus is a bit cheaper, a bit less expensive. Yeah. There's the, isn't there one of the Denons or
well, you have the, well, I don't think you really care one of that, but the TH900s, you have the
the 9200s.
Denons, there's the
yeah, oh yeah, the TH900, from Fostex. Yeah.
And then there's a Denon version too, though, which is mainly
it's also Fostex based.
As far as
I think that's it. But the that price range. I mean, for dynamic driver stuff, I think that's about it. It's like ZMF and I mean, I know there's probably some other stuff that's like mods and things like that around there too.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Oh, the
well, Aurorus Australis is less expensive by quite a bit. Well, that's the other thing.
Just thinking that they posted.
Well, that's what I was thinking of with the like it's not really mod, I guess, but it's from that community.
Yeah.
But the thing as well, though, is we don't actually know what the price is going to be like in North America, because we've only seen, right, like we know what the equivalent is in North American dollars, but there's always a chance that the pricing changes for different markets. So
that's fair.
So I'm not aware yet of, I think we have ballpark, but that's about it.
And then I'd be curious to see how much the price actually would drop after like a year or two, potentially.
Oh yeah, of course, because that always happens too, right? But it happened with the Sundara and the Ananda.
Ananda, Sundara. Yeah. I think almost like it's pretty notorious.
Edition X.
Edition X.
Right?
Like they always have like a year where they're like that premium price. Then if you wait, if you're patient, kind of like video games, right? If you're patient.
One last thing I wanted to mention, like I kind of like the idea of bringing things that are coveted or rare back, make it a little bit more available. But I know that a lot of collectors and people who really like the prestige don't like that. But I just think they did it wrong. If it had been more homage-like, or be like, we're making it more unique, our version of this.
I'd say make our version. Yeah, that would be.
Instead of just.
Well, I mean, technically he's doing the planar part, so I guess that's technically...
That is unique, yeah.
That's unique.
That's the one I'm more interested in, because, like, I've heard, like again, if it's a closed-back Susvara, that would be insane.
Andrew would probably die.
And kind of touching back to the homage thing, too, I think it'd be a different thing if... Homage, to me, is more of like if a company has gone away, and you're now trying to recreate something that's no longer available because it went away. But Sony's still around. Like I think that's the other problem. It's like,
well, I mean, with the model, they're not making it anymore though. So
and they only made
but actually,
so many, so
with that's similar kind of to, I mean, not totally because it's not a different scale, but the Sennheiser Orpheus versus the HE, whatever the current. It's just like the
I know
it's HE1. So they used to have the Orpheus system, which was super rare, and then they updated that. And then just kept making it more, and and as much as it was probably better, the fact that it was now more available rather than this super unique thing that only a few people had meant that it was not as
to people, man.
Yeah, it wasn't as exciting. It's still a $50,000 system, so it's like crazy, right?
Still like limited at the end of the day. But there's something to be said about that.
Exactly.
But yeah, interesting though. I think that's a pretty good hot take for that. I don't know. I'll be interested.
I can't wait to try one. I just gotta say, like, I can't wait to like put it through its paces, and I hope it's good.
We'll find out soon enough, right? So that's something that's could be coming down the pipe, and then I think from there, I don't think there's there hasn't really been too much news in the headphone space recently. So as far as that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there's the Audeze Penrose.
That was pretty much it for August, right? And then Penrose to me is like I'm not really excited about that, but it's cool. Like if that makes sense. Like,
is it more because it's in like the gamer market? Maybe it's not as exciting because
I think
I'm excited for it because it's low latency latency wireless, and that was the thing that, like, to me made it that the Mobius was kind of not. It didn't make that much sense.
For
Like the Mobius
gamers.
is just a USB headphone, right? In my mind, for the intended use, right? The way that it's marketed, but it just there's so much going on in that like I don't know why gamers would use it. And then the Penrose comes out, it's like, oh, this is exactly what it should have been at a less expensive price tag.
And
I
that
think
could
it's
be
great.
it too. Like they're iterating and learning, and
Yeah.
I was, and this is a new space, so they're progressing and getting
But
better at it.
see, to me, the Mobius is like that's the movie watching, media consumption closed back planar from Audeze, not necessarily the competitive low latency, wireless thing. And then, of course, with the Orbit and Orbit S and all that stuff, where they OEM'd for HyperX, they undercut themselves in that audience that they were trying to go for. And now they come out with the Penrose, and it's like that the Penrose is probably even better than the HyperX stuff because it's low latency. So
that's fair. I think that's pretty wise. That's what I'm saying. So that's a whole different market. So I think it is not as exciting in the sense of the audiophile space for like music side of the house, but as far as like, the gaming side of the house, I think
it
it's
fits
really
the
cool.
gaming application better.
Yeah, like it's,
we don't have very many planars in that space. I think Audeze is the only one really pushing that boundary.
I think they're the
so I think that's really exciting. And that's the thing is like once that audience gets a taste of like higher end headphones, maybe through this Penrose or even the Orbit S stuff, it's like that can start the addiction. And then they can become audiophiles as well, and then join the Audiophiles anonymous chat.
Now, exactly. But there is a progression if you look at it that way too, like filling those gaps in the market, right? Where you have the Penrose, which is even the HyperX stuff, and then it moves up to the Mobius, and then from the Mobius, I guess the next stage would be the GX, and that's pretty much the end of it, right?
Yeah.
So.
Well, for that audience, but
specific,
and then there's people who just skip it all and go for the HD800S.
Yeah.
Well, which I know Chrono was good.
Oh my!
So tell us, Chrono.
All right, I'm willing to. Okay, I will explain this in a second, but I want to comment on that about like gamers like going up like the audio chain. A lot of them now seems to start with the drop stuff.
Yeah.
Just the 5.8x, the 6XX. Yes, they're not as great for gaming as other headphones out there, but
they used to.
Well, I think people's perception of them.
Oh yeah, the K7XX.
That was real. I mean, as much as the tuning was weird, the treble was soundstage and all that stuff. It was probably the right thing.
Yeah, but most people ended up going with the Sennheiser stuff, anyways.
Which is crazy because when you think about it, like they're good, but they're not good. They're too closed in. They're too.
Yeah, they're warm, that's the thing I don't like about this right now is it actually feels like as much as there's so much detail and stuff in the mids and stuff, it feels obscured by the fact that it's like there's like two pieces of resolution missing in the front left and front right.
Yeah, like
that should be there.
You're missing stuff. Like
I'm wearing 660s right now, but I wouldn't use them for gaming.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they wouldn't be my choice for gaming.
Yeah, I don't think.
Yeah, the 5.8x. The 5.8x, I think even less. That one sounds a little even narrower to me than the other ones.
But compared to like all the stuff from Razer and SteelSeries and whatever else, I mean, the amount of like resolution and detail and like honestly the frequency response, everything you get from the 6XX is so much better than those.
It is, but at the same time, I'd argue that at least for shooters, in my experience, I would always prefer something like a SteelSeries, I guess, cringe, whatever you want, a SteelSeries Arctis 7 because it had better imaging, smaller but better imaging, and I didn't need the detail for the footsteps that I was listening to. I just needed to do the gaming work.
Well, that's where the Bayer Dynamics come in as well. Like they're not that expensive for like a DT880. Something.
The DT990 is $120 on Amazon.
Yeah, pretty inexpensive and pretty good for that kind of stuff. So I would take that over the Arctis stuff every day.
if you can get a HD800 for, am I on mute still? I'm not sure.
Like no, you're good.
For someone asked HD800 for €450. I mean, me personally, I think that's a great deal. I love the HD800s.
As long as there's not something weird with the connectors,
yeah,
like they've been ripped out or something.
As long as the connectors are good, and you just have to make sure you're not yanking them out too hard or anything like that.
Yeah, as long as you don't break the connectors, you're good. Because it's really annoying to pull the connectors out, right?
Those are actually pretty. It is gnarly. It's same kind of like even with these. Sometimes I get a little like, but
are you talking about connectors?
Yeah, we're talking about HD800
The
connectors.
Yeah.
Did you already tell the story?
No.
No.
Oh yes. Well, should I? No, maybe not.
I guess it would give context to our ribbing of Chrono.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, hello.
Hello, my name is Chrono.
I was very happy that I got a review unit for the HD800S, and it was
So the
brand
$1,700
new.
one.
Because he got quieter,
brand
like a little
new.
more subdued. He's kind of like,
And
crestfallen.
I enjoyed it for 2 hours, and then I was like, oh, let me see the removable cable. So I didn't notice this. Well, so basically, I tried to pull it out, and I was like, oh, it's a little stiff. So I look up on YouTube how to remove HD800 cables. And I was like, okay, I'll do just like the video. Yes, I'm serious. Then I pull out the thing and pull out the entire socket. And I was like, this looks weird. Let me verify this with the other side. So then I pull it out, and basically both drivers can no longer be connected to anything. Because I didn't notice this, but from the factory, the socket was already partially out.
Yeah.
And yeah, all I needed was just a little tug, because it's only held in there by friction.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, what
most Sennheisers, that's how they work for all their stuff. Is it's modular.
And I hate these connectors on the 6XX are pretty.
Pinners are gnarly.
Well, actually, they're not. These are not as stiff for some reason as on the 660S. I don't know if that changed at all, but these ones don't feel as bad. But what Chrono's describing here, there's only one way to remove the cables on the HD800S.
By pulling out.
And that's exactly what you did. So, like, I don't think you could be faulted for there being like a poor connection on the socket side. Like, there's nothing you can do.
And it doesn't have a locking mechanism, so it just pulled out the entire thing. I was like, wow, that's a really bad design.
Because it has like a little there's little notches on the part of the connect. I don't think I have any HD800.
No, yeah, but that's for like it clicks in.
It clicks in, yeah, and it has like it almost feels magnetic, but I think you're right. I think it is more of like that, like. Yeah. Or maybe I'm thinking of the Cascades because they have the same connector. But it does have, and it has a little notch where you have to like spin it just right so it connects perfectly and then kicks in. And then
but it's just held in by friction after that.
There's friction. There's a little notch that kind of holds it in, and then you. That's okay. I'm not going to do that with my hands. But let's see here. So. You guys get the idea. It's a little, it's a pain in the butt. It's kind of like an MMCX connector to some level. Where
I was going to demonstrate it with the HD820 that I have here, but I don't want to risk pulling the connectors out.
Maybe you could just show it on camera.
This is what happened.
This is what. Oh.
It's now a modder's headphone.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to mod the HD820. Yeah. Now we get to do it.
Take the glass off, see how it sounds.
Probably like an HD800.
Yeah, exactly. Just. Improved it in many ways. I
wonder if because they do have dampening material in the cups differently. So I mean,
well, yeah, there's an absorption mechanism
because it hits the glass
on the inside.
It sends the waves outward this way, away from your ears into the absorption material from it. Yeah. Crazy.
I like the way the H820 looks.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, with the glass.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Too bad it doesn't sound gorgeous.
If you get the right fit, it can be decent. I had once I got the right fit, as long as I wasn't wearing glasses and I had
you have to be in the right mood,
and you have to be and it has to be like
what mood is that? Well,
you have to be in the right mood.
I should shut up. I haven't heard it. It's just that I saw the graph and I was like, whoa. It was
but you gotta evaluate with your ears.
Yeah.
But because some people they do legitimately like it. Like I see people posting on Reddit and they're like, this is my first crazy high end headphone, and then everybody who knows about it's like, oof. But the thing is, it has such good resolution and detail and all that stuff.
Yeah.
That for people who they're not necessarily looking for the most linear frequency response, they're still like, whoa, it's crazy.
Everyone that when I had it for a while, I took it to work when I was still at the office stuff, and then everyone that wanted to listen to it was like blown away by it. They were like, I mean, they're also coming from Beats or from
exactly
whatever
you could
mass market
put a Meze 99 Classic on them and they'd have the same reaction.
I did that too. I actually did. I brought the Meze 99 Classic in one day, and I had my own personal set, and I was like, I like them, but it wasn't something I was going to end up keeping.
Yeah.
And so they were all like, oh, and like they had a bunch of people like trying to like best the other person to buy them off me, and I'm like, you can buy them yourselves. They're not expensive.
No.
But
$400, I think, something like that. 300.
The classics, I think they're like 100 something, $200.
On Drop, you can get them for 200.
250 for Amazon for the gold and walnut ones. But
I was gonna say it depends because there's the Neo and the Noir and all the rest of them. And now Dakoni released some pads for them, which is kind of cool because that was always the issue with the 99 Classics is that like
shallow.
they're so boomy and whatnot in the bass, but then that had to do with different pads. So if you pad swap, there's a potential
the,
that
the original pads were supposed to be the best, I think.
Yeah.
Supposedly,
Yeah.
Someone asked, what do you guys think of the Campfire Cascade? So,
I'll let Tyler talk about
I actually own them. I own the Cascades. They're not with me now. I sent them off to my buddy Dex, and he's been listening to them. But they're Bassy. I actually, if you get them, they have 2 aftermarket pads you can get for them. There's this cloth one, which honestly is not my favorite. It's very scratchy material, rough material, but it does help with the bass lock. It's that cloth material, so it lets the sound waves escape a little easier. And then there's the XL pads, which are my favorite, because then it pulls them a little bit further away from your ears, and then it gives you more room inside the cup.
Yeah.
Because they're weird, man. They have like this square. That's not good accurate.
No, but you're right. It's a
like
very
a square look to them. But as far
I
as
actually
that
have
goes,
them here.
Oh, you do? Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, I do.
The Cascades are, but once if you like, I think they're fantastic for fun.
I'm gonna measure these pretty soon.
They're bassy, and I think they're nice looking. They're very portable. They fold up and stuff, and then the magnet pads for them are. Everyone needs to switch to their pads. Like if you pull the pad off real quick, it's magnetic. It just pops right off. It's like
I'll show you guys here.
They're fantastic. I think everyone needs to have pad swapping.
Monster used to make a headphone that looked like that.
Yeah. They're just magnets just right on, and then I think they're beryllium, aren't they? A beryllium driver, they're like a smaller beryllium driver.
I think they're beryllium coated.
Mm-hmm. And then so they're fast. They're weird to me. They have like the bass is definitely on a pedestal with them, right? Like they're definitely the bass is that's the star of the show. But the mids and highs are still good. They're there. They're just not as up front as the bass is, at least from my experience with. I've never looked at a measurement for them or anything like that, but in fact, the most I use them with is of all things. So they're actually pretty easy to drive too. So I actually use them with like my Switch, or I'll use them with like a Xbox or PS4 controller, or my iPad or iPhone is a quick, like, fun to use. But there is a thing. The headband is narrow, and that's one of the only headphones I've ever used that gave me a hotspot on top of my head.
Yep. So for me, there's a couple things. There's 2 things I don't like with the Cascade. One is obviously the tuning is not for me because it's just a huge bass shelf. Yeah, like I think, what Tyler's saying about the pads, like if you have the alternative pads, maybe this curbs the bass response and it can, help. I'm not sure which one would be the best for that, but
cloth, they're not the most cool.
Well, I was actually thinking maybe the leather, because if you think about it
would boost it. The leather does boost the mids and trebles a little bit.
Yeah, and like if it's larger, maybe there's more room there for the bass to go somewhere else, but rather than just being funneled directly into your ear. But it all depends on the design, right? And it's a nice looking headphone. So the other thing that really bugs me with these is the weight is not good for a non-suspension style headband. Like it's not a heavy headphone, but because this is just a single piece and not a suspension style,
and the pad's not the greatest either.
And the top padding is pretty thin as well, thin, narrow, not
narrow.
Yeah. So what I'd recommend if you are considering something like this is the ZMF Pilot or Copilot pad, and you just pop that on there, and
that helps a lot.
It makes it a lot more comfy. But this is one that, for the treble detail, actually, it's pretty good. And same with the mid detail. It's just that the tuning is so bassy. Is enormous. Yeah, bass is enormous. But the other thing with it too is that the build quality is really nice on this.
It's really good.
Like it's remarkable. So I should probably do like a review at some point of this. And honestly, maybe do some pad swapping.
If you can get Campfire to send you the XL pads, especially. I think I heard those at ZM Festivus XL pads. ZM Festivus 2. Yeah, I think 2. Maybe it's 3. No, 3's coming up. But if we get through this wonderful pandemic,
we'll see what happens with life.
And I heard them at ZM Festivus, and I was like, whoa, like it was a big enough change, because I think I even had the Cascades with me for that trip for whatever reason. So like I said, they're easy to carry around, portability and that kind of stuff, and they work really well for movies, games, which that single player stuff like that. So that's something I would recommend, Andrew, is if you get a chance, or is to try it with like your Surface and like watch a movie, or like even like stuff like that. Idea. Like just try it without like any DAC or amp, just straight out of whatever. Because I do that with my iPhone and my iPad, and I was was like, that's how I actually, those are like my bed stand, so that's how I use it mostly.
Yeah.
They're in my little bucket in my next to my bed stand where I keep all my.
There's some Red Dead Redemption with them.
Yeah, or so yeah, like they're just fun. That's
Yeah.
that's why they're a guilty pleasure for me. Is like they're easy to drive. They're entertaining enough, and when I'm not trying to do anything critical or even like relaxing or just like I just want to have a good time, those are what I do.
Maybe drowned in bass.
Yeah.
But see, to me, bass emphasis and bass elevation is never a problem if it's at the right spot, right? That's all I really care about. Like, I like bass, but I want it to come down at like 150 hertz. Like, I don't want it to bleed. You know, I don't want it to overshadow the rest. That was my issue with the Night Owl as well, and like the Nighthawk. It's like the bass shelf just is too far into the lower mids.
Speaking of, so I have the Andromeda version of those.
Titian mentioned it in the chat, but for other IEM news, the Odin and the Hero and all the new Empire Ears stuff, that's really exciting. We now have something that is potentially the best IEM in the Odin, which is very, very exciting.
Yeah, lots of people going for the Odin. Plus, it looks gorgeous. That shell.
Oh yeah, that's like. Man, I hope they sell a ton of those. Empire Ears is always one of those brands where it's like you see like them doing.
It's like
it really, and like they're doing really cool stuff with like the technology for like all the technical stuff, and their technical performance is nuts on pretty much everything they have with their their weapon subwoofers and whatever. But for whatever reason, they haven't up until now had that like perfect tuning like U12T competitor. Right, there's always been some sort of flavor going on with all of them, right? Like the Valkyrie and the
or even the
Legend
Wraith
X.
was like, or the Legend X was talk about bass cannon.
So bassy, yeah. So like the flavor stuff, they have it down, right? For the fun
just
kind of
getting them all together into one.
Yeah, but like they don't up until now they haven't had that like perfectly neutral. Well, that's quote unquote neutral. What is neutral, right? Like, but you know what I mean, right? Like the U12T kind of thing, or like
the smooth. It's like that smooth dual kind of like IEM headphone or whatever,
or something like a Blessing 2. Something that's more normal sounding.
Which I found, and Andrew, you've heard them too. The Andromeda 2020.
Yeah.
I was
actually that's a good example.
Those those remind me of the U12T. In a way, not in the sense like, but I'm just saying like that profile or that what would you call it, like that signature, right? It has that kind of like that signature of smoothness and easy to get along with this. And I was like, wow, these are easy. Like I threw a bunch of genres at them. I listened to a bunch of different random music, and
you heard my sibilance test tracks.
Sibilance, and actually these did worse with the sibilance. And I was like, well, because these ones, if you look at the measurements, these have a bass shelf a little bit higher than the 2020s, and they actually sound very similar to me, but then with the bass shelf, and then they also have like a upper mids, it seems like, and a treble boost to them too for the Andromeda Golds. But outside of those things, they actually kind of align.
It's a similar elevation for like mids and stuff. That was actually the thing that I really liked about the 2020 Andromeda was that the two things that people had issues with for the original Andromeda was, well, the treble was sometimes too hot, and then didn't have enough mids.
The sparkle.
You see, I think they went too far on the treble cut. Like I think that they didn't need to go as much on that.
I want that sparkle back. I'm actually eyeballing the version 3s again. I'm like kind of want that back a little bit, right? But maybe I'll just get my HD800s back and be good.
Yeah.
Chrono, what do you think? Are you an IEM guy? I know the answer, but that's what I figured.
Include
you.
Put him on the spot.
So actually, aside from my Apple AirPods, I haven't really tried anything that would be considered in-ear. I know that somewhere, somehow, Android is hurting inside.
Likes over-ears.
But
he doesn't like IEMs either.
Yeah.
Even though he reviews all of them.
I want to try them. It's just that in the past I've had issues with like fit. Like my ears actually like it starts hurting my ears really bad when I use anything in ears. I know that I maybe should try a lot of different tips. I know there's different things like the molding, the more molding ones, the foam ones, and stuff like that. But that's the only reason why I've been kind of reluctant to try it, because it's always actually quite painful for me.
Yeah.
Well, that's my problem. Is like I have sensitive, like physical sensitivity to the IEMs. Like if they're like the pressure of them on my ears will start to ache. So that's my
that's It's like that.
Which is funny. The Andromeda, of all the IEMs I've used so far, I think it's the Andromeda, and the U12T was actually pretty decent.
Yeah.
And then some of the what's it called? The Audio. I think I tried the The Audio recently, the Legacy 3.
Yeah.
I was actually shocked by that. I was impressed. Like, I mean,
is that the one that measures really well?
I think
Grin
so.
is all.
Yeah, I think, and it's cheap, and it's sort of the cheapest custom in ear you can get. I think.
Custom.
Yeah,
okay,
you can get a custom in ear for like less than $200.
Oh wait, no, sorry.
The
one Crin was the one Crin measured was the Monarch, I think.
Monarch, yeah, different. Yeah. This one, the Legacy. I mean, Legacies they're not fantastic. Like there's definitively IEMs that spank the crap out of them. But for the price and the custom, it's impressive. Those are comfortable.
For fit, my favorite is still the Dunu DK3001 Pro. All the Dunu, like those ones, the Dunu hybrids, they're really small and they fit so well. I would have said actually the Moondrop Starfield and KXXS and all those, because they, like, for the shell it's really comfortable. But I do notice, like, if I don't have like foam tips or the larger tips in them, there's a tendency for them to kind of like slide slightly out. Like, they don't fall out, but they slide out
that weird, like,
where they're
slowly
not,
like
and like, but like they're not going to fall out. It's just that they slide out past where they sound optimal. You know what I mean? So their default fit for me isn't far in enough for them to sound as good as they do normally, right?
Like, you don't get the proper seal, and then just where it starts to be irritating. Yeah,
so you got to use like a slightly larger than you would otherwise size, at least for me, for my ear canal. But apart from that, they're pretty darn comfortable.
They grab so much dust and everything else, but these
they do.
Asless Sedna, Elecstatic.
I need to get some of those.
These things are they're kind of tacky, so they seal freaking.
Yeah.
I think they're better than foams, to be honest, for seal, and they're less finicky. You know how foams sometimes, like, if you don't get it right in your ear as soon as you have them compressed, and it doesn't seal properly. I don't know. But these are great. Like, and then the sound I was really impressed by the sound, the way it just kind of works. And then they actually have a pretty wide bore too, so it's not as big as some, but it's one of the bigger ones, so it's not as impeding the driver. But yeah, those are definitely some fun things to think about as far as IEM space. I'm excited for the Odin. I was talking to one of the members of the community that's getting them in hopefully soon, and he was like, you need to come by and check them out as soon as he gets them. So I'm looking forward to trying them out.
Was somebody near you?
Yeah. You know him. We all know him. He's
I know who it is.
He's there's someone like to call, as I think Rush was calling him, boat tile. And I was like, that's actually pretty apt. Like, it's pretty good.
Does he have his Hawaiian shirt game strong? He's out there in a boat in a Hawaiian shirt.
I actually have a Hawaiian shirt right now, but it causes more, and that's why the webcam's off. Not just kidding. There's no webcam to begin with.
I was gonna say, you're depriving us of future tile here.
Yeah. The heck, man. Why can't we see Chrono? Because Chrono is not a believer in video cameras.
Yeah, he thinks they're not real.
They're not real.
I just record everything on my phone.
I'm just looking at the chat now as well. So Resolve started with a negative opinion on the LCD X, which has somewhat changed by time, lifting it from the Ananda's level to Aria's in the latest XC review. Does Resolve think he was too hard on the X? No. See, the thing is, I said even in the LCD X review that once you EQ it, it's the details on the level of the Aria at least. Right. The Aria has a better sense of detail retrieval because of its tuning, which is quite a bit more balanced there. You actually have pinna gain with the Aria, and it's got upper mid-range presence, and then also the soundstage in the Aria and the depth and layering is just better. So you may get an extra sense of detail if you just compare them without any EQ, but then once you EQ the LCD-X and bring up the upper mids, because they're just gone on this 2020 version, or at least the early 2021. And when you bring that back up to where it is similar to with the Aria, then you get at least as much detail retrieval there with the X, which is surprising. I think it's very impressive. And you get better dynamics and whatnot. So that's why I think with the XC, it's the same thing. Like, you ridiculously good detail with those, even though you don't get the image, the sound stage and depth and all that stuff that you get with the Aria.
Well, and here's the thing I think is interesting. and the more I kind of see it and whatnot, and seeing your interactions with the Audeze stuff and other people's and stuff, it seems like Audeze, even with their own software, is like the EQer's dream, right? Like
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I completely agree. Like if you're getting into Audeze
Super
headphones,
versatile.
you got to be getting into EQ as well, and it's perfect for that because it
Yeah.
responds so well to it, right? Like I mean, I legitimately think for many Audeze headphones, if you don't use the Reveal Plus or if you don't use any kind of EQ, you're missing a large portion of what that can potentially sound like.
Yeah,
Right.
I had that experience with both
Potential,
the not with the GX, because the GX is a lot. Well, it's normal.
Yes, some of
actually.
them are way more
I wouldn't say
normal,
it's.
yeah.
I wouldn't even say that it's a lot more normal. It's just normal. Period.
Yeah.
But with the LCD2C and LCD2, I was like, man, the mid range sounds grainy, and I think in large part it's just that huge recession, like between like 2.5, 5K. That just makes everything sound like it has. It's like veiled, like actually veiled, like seriously veiled, and it just sounds grainier. And then when you pull it back up, you're like, oh, there is detail there.
Exactly.
There's, like, good clarity. It's just that
Yeah.
it was just covered in lack of presence.
Yeah.
That's funny.
It is amazing though when you do start playing with EQ for headphones that are not, like how different it is when you're EQing. Like for example, I EQ'd the AudioQuest Night Owl to be more normal, and it did improve, but it didn't respond anywhere near as well as like any of the Audeze stuff. So it really depends on the headphones, and for getting into EQ. Like even like I EQ the Hifiman R10, and it can handle it, reasonably well, but it's still like it doesn't have the same dynamics as the Audeze, LCDX or LCDXC. So there's certain things that I just feel like you can EQ to your heart's desire, but it doesn't, it's not the same.
Yeah. And you have to be careful too, because sometimes if you're not, don't be heavy-handed with EQ for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. RME ADI2s for people who are like, I don't like using software, because I know there's a lot of people out there who are just like, I don't EQ because I don't like software. I don't like messing with software, and it's fair enough. But then you get an RME ADI2, or you get actually even just the IFI stuff with the bass boost. I think
bass
is
boost,
yeah,
or even like the Loki from Shit.
That's another one.
I mean, that's an analog.
It's smaller.
It's smaller.
Yeah.
I think it's 3 bands. It's really like low, middle, high. Like there's no.
It's like a more. It's a tone control more.
Tone control, but like, I mean, that's something to kind of give an idea of what potentially EQ could be good for. But I will say I have the RME right here, and I've messed with EQ with it, the ADI2, and they're really cool. And if you really are into it, it's really a great little device for that. And you can save for each headphone profiles and stuff. I'm just lazy, and it takes a lot of time to do that, and so I tend to just be like, because it's a little bit, and it's a learning experience. You have to really learn the way that everything works with it, and I can do it now, and I can do it pretty quickly now when I want to. Like, so whenever like you guys post your EQ stuff, I can quickly go in and go, okay, but and I just it's crazy. I feel like a DJ when I'm doing it, because like it's such a weird. It's just
that's
the
way it
works.
Make EQ controls is like a DJ.
It is weird because there's like the knobs you have to like press and spin to get to the different little things, and like it's. And so it's a little bit of a learning curve to learn how to manage the how you go through the systems and menus and stuff. But once you do, you can get it pretty decent, and it's fun. It's definitely cool for that, and you can really dial in the EQ on it.
But the one thing that really does worry me with EQ and Audeze and many headphones, but largely Audeze and largely planars, is that there is both unit variation, and with Audeze in particular, there's revisions that like. You don't know, like for example, the early 2020 LCDX that I have here doesn't measure like the ones from before that without the mesh. Like this has the mesh grill on it, and the ones before that, it actually has some upper mid presence there, so it's not as like ridiculously subdued. So my EQ profile for the LCDX for this one isn't applicable to anybody who has an older one or potentially a newer one. We don't know what's going to happen in the future either, right? So, and this was the thing I found with the LCDXC as well, and their Reveal Plus. The Reveal Plus is not at all applicable to the LCDXC, because I think it was applicable for an older revision, and it just hasn't been updated for the newer one. So like, how do you...
Across the board, Audeze had like a 2016 driver update, and I don't think that's made clear enough sometimes.
Yeah. So like, I always worry about that when I'm recommending an EQ profile, even though like for Audeze, it's like you can take it. The EQ is fine, but I think you got to do it kind of by yourself for... by ear and listen to the headphone while you're doing it, because otherwise maybe it's a unit variation thing, or maybe it's a revision thing, and you don't really know.
Even your chain's different than their chain,
or the chain.
Yeah, like there's all sorts of factors that can come into play with that. I think like you nailed it. Like take someone else's EQ profile, for instance, like you said, and then tweak it from there to your preference. Like that's yeah.
I think that the best way to use the EQs is just a sort of a very loose baseline. Just EQ however you want to preference, whatever fits your your setup best, your ears.
And like for any of the ones where I have been like more specific with my like filters, or there's more filters or anything like that, or the narrow Q values, that's only for the unit that I have on hand and not necessarily for different revisions. So
it works, and I think that's people. I think sometimes people forget that's like we're all individuals, guys. Don't like I mean, I think you need to have that aspect of what I like to say is like find people that align with your preferences as close as possible. So like if you have the same headphones that Resolves listen to or Chronos listen to, and you've aligned with their thought processes on that, that gives you a better understanding of what they're talking about, and you can kind of align better with what they're saying about other things that you haven't heard, and so you can get a better. And so that's what I think people sometimes forget about. It's like make sure that it's aligning with your experiences too, because who knows, it's a
maybe you really like Beats headphones.
Yeah, maybe you really love Beats, or the Cascade is your jam.
Yeah, exactly.
Someone asked about the Ananda, and I have it sitting up there. I can grab it real quick if they want, and I can try it. But I think you guys have. Do you guys still have the Ananda? But anyways,
I don't have it near me, but
I have it with me. It's right here.
But we can't even see you, Chrono.
Well, imagine that I am holding up an Ananda in front of my imaginary camera and saying, "This is a Hifiman Ananda."
It's sort of a different colored version of this.
Yeah, perfect. Okay.
So, with a worse headband.
With the worst headband,
yeah. And so the question is how is that with glasses? Since we all wear glasses, I think, right? Chrono, do you wear glasses? Yeah. So like,
look at that. That's very nice.
Glasses.
Do you not wear glasses?
Nope.
Oh my gosh.
So I can give a bit of an answer to that, because with these Hifiman headphones, they're the tuning is based on the coupling to the side of the head. And when you can test this even if you don't wear glasses and you have one of these and you just sort of pull it slightly away from your head, for all these Hifiman headphones, the bass goes way up. So when you wear glasses, if you have glasses with thick sides, you're going to get a little more bass there out of these, which is counterintuitive because you normally think when you break the seal that you lose bass, but because of the way that these are tuned with the coupling, you gain bass when you have glasses. With these ones that I have here that are like really, really thin on the sides, it's not going to change that much, if at all. But actually, I at one point did measure this and found that the bass went up too. So
well, there's a Kren, I think it was Kren, maybe it was Trongu. One of those guys did the mod.
Yeah,
where they modded and then Android did it
mod.
too, where they I think they push it forward a little bit, right? Is
that
what happens?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
It does
they open it up like this. Here, I'll show you.
Kind of like,
so
like a flap or something like that.
Yeah,
kind of like the backs kind of open up. Or is it forward?
They open it. No, it's forward like this.
Okay, so
they do kind of like the wing thing.
Gotcha.
Similar to like the
SR1As or the K1000 or whatever.
Yeah, whatever that one was. Yeah, and it's called he did it with the HE1000 HE1000 V1. Kren did, and I think Android did it with the Aria, and that gives you way more bass. Now Kren tells me that you get dynamics as well, but I'd have to try that and that'd be really interesting because that's one of the drawbacks for these egg-shaped Hifiman planers is that you don't get the same dynamics. So I'd be curious about that.
And Elric, I have not sung any Barry White songs yet. I don't think that my chops are ready for that. I need to go back and listen to some more Barry White and get some of his songs memorized.
We're waiting for that segment.
There was somebody who was talking about in one of the threads on the forum was why do all the YouTubers sound like super awesome and whatever, and then the joke was Barry White. So
here's the question: Do you think Borealis is a legitimate option for someone wanting something with dynamics but can't shell out for an LX? Aren't they?
Isn't
Isn't the
more
Alex
expensive?
cheaper?
Yeah,
The
Alex is
Yeah,
Alexa
I
cheaper.
don't get
cheaper.
that.
The Alex is cheaper, bro.
Yeah,
So
maybe he means a clear, because that's
clear,
really like,
yeah.
like I would take the clear over the Borealis. I think it's just a straight up better headphone, but the like for detail and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But the dynamics are pretty close. Like the Borealis is a punchy boy.
Sleepy Rhythms from the forum. He has the Elex and the Clear now, I think, but he just got the Euphoria Echo.
Oh, cool.
The little tube amp.
Yeah,
And
the Felix Audio.
Felix Audio Echo, yeah. And so
I really want to try those.
I do too. And they're actually not that expensive. I was actually,
No.
I was like, holy crap. But he was saying, I was chatting with him, and he was saying that the Elex is actually better with it, and it actually makes the Elex a more enjoyable headphone, like more, like he actually prefers.
Well, that
it
would
over
make
the Clear.
sense, because if you're using it on a tube amp, you're going to lose a bit of the treble. It's going to soften the treble, not lose necessarily, but soften the treble, and you might lose a little bit of the bass. And the one thing with the Alex is that it's got more treble, like the treble is a little too intense there compared to the Clear. And even though it's pretty similar for the overall like curve, there's just more of it, at least from what I've seen for measurements. And so with the Clear on a tube amp, you may lose too much whereas with the Alex, you wouldn't. So you'd get more of that crispness on the Alex there it depends on how the tube amp works, though, because there's some tube amps that don't. But that would make a certain amount of sense. I can see that if you're keying in on that, and then you get more, like when it changes, and you get more clarity, let's say, as a result, then yeah, I could see that.
And you're saying, and I was trying to think, like, because I have the KN HA1A Mark II here, which has that where you can change the
That's the boat. The boat pirate ship one.
With the cool porthole and the faux wood, red wood thing. And I remember using I didn't like the Clear on it. I didn't like. I think I did use the Elex with it a bunch though, and at the time I didn't really pay attention to it. But I think that makes sense now. But yeah, so that's interesting.
Yeah, I need to try those Felix Audio ones. If anybody knows the guys from Felix Audio, tell them to hook me up and I'll do a review.
Yeah, I want to,
because it's hard. It's impossible to get them in Canada. Like, I mean, you can, but it's like it's
ridiculous.
A nightmare for
import, because they're coming all the way from Europe, right? So
yeah. Although maybe that's changed, because I know Canada has some sort of like trade agreement with European countries now, but I'm not sure. The one I've always wanted to try is the Elise,
or the Euphoria.
The Elise and Euphoria, yeah, both of those.
Nice.
Nice. But the Elise was always the one that was in my price range.
It's
like
So fun random thought. Let's see here.
What do you guys think is the most value for money price range these days? Am I right to say it's 1,000 to 1K to 1.2K? I own headphones from 3,000 to 300 to 3,000. This is a really good question, I think, because it has changed.
It has changed. I have thoughts on this too. So let's and you ask, go first, and we'll go through the line.
Yeah, I think so obviously the most value, like the best value bracket, is going to be $220 to $350 with either the HD6XX or the Hifiman Sundara, because they're so much better than everything underneath it, like categorically better, right? And then for open back at least, and then they you could go up to like $700 and find people who still prefer both of those ones, right? So that's a really good value bracket there, category. I weirdly think that like there are three tiers of technical performance above this. There's that range, and then there's three tiers in general. There's that range there with like the Sundara and the HD6XX. Then there's the like $1,000 to $2,000 price bracket where you have the Focal Clear and the HD800S, and you have the Aria and the LCDX and all these. That's already a big step up.
Yeah,
that's where that step up starts to really matter, I think. And you could maybe throw in some of the $899 headphones in there too, like the Aeon 2 for detail and stuff, maybe. But you get the idea. Like that range is that's where the biggest step up happens from the $350 headphones, and then from there, it feels like there's this sort of nebulous, like you don't really know about pricing and performance above $2,000, between $2,000 and $4,000. Because at 4,000, you get the next sort of summit tier where it's like, holy moly, like this is a big difference yet again. And that's where your LCD4s
get more niche too, though, as you get up to those higher price points. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but for not all of them, I should say, not all of them, because like the Empyrean is not on the level of like the LCD4 or the HE1000 SE or the Susvara or D8000 Pro. But at that crazy level, you have the next tier. You can even in dynamic drivers like Focal Utopia and stuff like that. So I really do think like the 3-tier thing is the way to look at like where your value benchmarks are. And like if you're getting something that's like 20, I mean there are exceptions to this, right? Because like I think there's like the Verite out there and that kind of stuff. But for overall value, I think it's worth looking at it in a 3-tiered kind of way.
No, I agree a lot with that actually. Chrono, what do you think?
Yeah, Chrono.
We lost him.
No, I'm here. All right.
What do you think? The value? What's the best? Like I guess really the question is, what's the best value, right? I agree with it. You need to look at it in 3 separate things. But what's your current viewpoint on that? Like, where's the best value in the space right now?
I think I have to agree with the 3-tier system per se. I think that anything under 1,000, not under 1,000. Sorry, I should say more like I think under $700 for me. The 6XX and the Zendar are pretty hard to beat. I feel like you get quite a bit of sound from those two, especially in their price range. And if you consider the scalability of the 6XX,
scalability.
It's amazing out of the Phonitor X. Like it's but of course then it's like you could spend that money on a headphone.
And then I think the next biggest step would be, I think probably around like $1,500, somewhere in that ballpark. The stuff like the Aria HD800, DX. That's
a significant step.
Yeah, the HD800 is fantastic. Even from the LCD2, which I really like and I love its technical performance. I was like, yeah, man, the HD800 is something else. So I feel like at that price range, those are a new sort of benchmark. And then I haven't tried the $4,000 stuff, but considering some of the comments I see online, I'm guessing that's where there's yet another step in the chain of.
We'll make sure you get to try that out at some point. Because that's the thing that I find is it's such a big deal for describing the differences in detail and stuff like that when you've heard some of the crazy nanoscale planars or you hear the Focal Utopia. You'll get a chance to hear that. Honestly, even the treble and mids of the SR1A, like that's right up there with those as well. I think for detail at least.
I think and I agree with those statements. I think I always say this to people all the time is like for me, I think as far as to pick for most normal audiophiles, like an in-game range would be the 1 to 2,000 range. I think that's most people's in-game total headphone range. That
I would agree.
If you hit that, you just stop and be happy. Like so, I always say like my top picks are always going to be. Currently, my top picks would be the Aeolus, Clears, and probably not. I haven't heard them, but based on what everyone else says, probably for planar would probably be the Aria, just because of other people I know and respect in the space recommend those over everything else. So I'd probably be those 3, and that would be mostly based on your preference, right? So if you like a more warm, lush, or like a more smooth sound, probably go with the Aeolus. If you like a more crisp and like kind of like very clear sound, go with the Clear.
Punchy sound, man.
I made that one in my review as well.
And then for the Aria, I'm assuming, because I haven't heard it, so I'm just spitting out my mouth hole now. But I would assume kind of the similar to the like HD800 even. So that'd be another one I would say is another option. And the reason I didn't say HD800 because the Aria's there, but it'd be like that wide sound stage with that very spacious and imaging and very unique character that way.
I think also depends on the genres that you like, and I know this is controversial because Sean Olive out there is like, no, it's all got to be the same, but
he doesn't like your name.
No. But if I really do think it matters, not just for tonal balance, but also for other aspects. Like all those Hi-Fi Man headphones, like the egg-shaped ones, are fantastic for classical music and jazz music and that kind of stuff. and they're not as fun for pop and rock and metal. Yes, they're fine for them, but I find that I prefer something with really good dynamics for those genres, and that's where the Focal Clear and like the LCD-XC and that kind of stuff comes in, where it's like really punchy and has a lot of fun impact. And then yeah, like anything, I mean, I've recently been going down the like nostalgia rabbit hole with like, you know, a lot of the metal that I used to listen to.
Oh, it's dangerous.
Yeah, but there's a lot of stuff with like, you know, double bass kick drums and stuff like that, and it's amazing how well the Audeze headphones handle. You know, they don't fall apart, and they're so articulate in the bass. It's just a ton of fun. So to me, it depends on the genre.
That's why you need more than one headphone at the end of the day.
Completely agree.
Yeah, I actually support the different genre pairing thing. Like for me, sometimes like overall, I think I would gravitate towards like the Sundara, because I think that they perform really well overall. But if I'm listening to rock, I don't think I could get away from something from the 600 series. Is that mid range is just so full for like electric guitars, and they have just the right bite and presence. So
yeah, I know what you mean.
Until you hear something else.
Yeah.
Well, the mid range. Well, it's not. That's not. I don't feel like that's tied to performance. So I feel like that would be
just the tuning.
Just the actual tuning just sounds so like, you know, for guitars it's just meaty. But if I had to choose something different, it would be definitely the Clear, because the Clear also has an amazing mid range. So for the music I listen to, I love it.
I have a question for both of you, kind of similar to that. If you, for all of us who are like scrutinizing measurements and stuff like that, when we're looking at the measurements, we're not looking at necessarily the technical performance.
No.
But there's a lot of headphones out there that in the higher end stuff that I think get away with a, let's say, suboptimal, depending on who you are, tonality and frequency response, and are still really fun to listen to because of how crazy good their technical ability is in one area or another. I would even potentially put the HD800S into that category, because for some genres it's like just shrill. Like there's a bit of shrillness there, but you tend to ignore it because of how crazy good the soundstage and the detail and all this stuff is. And so what I would ask both of you guys, maybe let's start with Tyler, but how, like, for overall like things that you care about, how highly does technical performance rank versus tonal balance and like your, you know, tonality preference?
So for me, like I one of the things I enjoy with headphones and a lot of my other hobbies too is the unique character of something. And so it does, to me, it does matter a lot. Like, so for instance, like you mentioned, AC100 is a perfect example of that, where I was one of my first wow moments in the headphone space was hearing an AC100 and hearing that huge wide soundstage and the treble and like the imaging, and it was just whoa, like hearing things like never thought I would hear in the headphone. And then another one was when I paired it with my Bottlehead Track, was another big, because then it brought a lot of the stuff that was missing from it as a standard headphone back up. But but I think for me, yes, I'll find like a unique character. Like, so for instance, if it's super good dynamics, or if it's very, you know, if there's a very unique character about it that's giving me something that other headphones don't, I will pick that over tonal balance a lot of times. So but I definitely have, I think everyone knows at this stage that I'm a bit of a ZMF addict. So that is probably my preferred like profile or signature
just
for headphones.
Somewhat downsloped
kind of. I would like to have that label too. Soon enough.
Soon.
But and then for instance, that's actually another one is SR1A. So that's another one that I really enjoy that one, just because it's so unique and it's such a crazy experience to listen to it. That's another one that I would say, like, so it might not necessarily meet my exact preference, which, I mean, if you look at the SR1A versus the ZMF, you could instantly
very
know.
different.
Like but the technical capabilities of it is fantastic, and it's like it's hard to get away from that. So I would say for me, I do gravitate. I have a preference for sure for tonal balance and like the and what have you, but I do think I will kind of deviate from that for a specific characteristic.
Yeah. Chrono?
That one's tough, man.
What's that?
That one's tough. I'm trying to think, because like after hearing like
that was his answer.
It was the yeah, that's it. Next for another day. Sorry. I'm thinking. Wait, hold up, because like it was a very brief impression of the HD800, as we all know.
Storied impression.
Yeah, definitely. But for me, I was like, wow, that clarity. I was like, is that what I prefer? Because at the same time, it's like I listen to the clear, especially after EQ is very warm and inviting sound. It has a tonal balance after EQ that I really enjoy. It also has the dynamics, especially in the low end, But then it's like, what do I prefer? Like the tonality, the clarity. I think comfort's starting to become a bigger one for me because I have head problems. So
we all have head problems.
You should probably clarify that a little bit there.
Yeah, so basically,
mental issues.
So basically, things like the clear, like that's a struggle to fit for me.
Right.
Whereas the HD800, it's like a nice cloud.
Even though the
my head.
clear made it onto my most comfortable headphones list.
Well, you did put the disclaimer that for people with bigger head.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's
you remembered me.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it has that thing with the
little nitpick section there.
Yeah, with the little that mechanism that it has, I can feel it like start pulling up, and it's just uncomfortable, and it's just it doesn't sit right, and it's just like So even though I love the clear, the comfort is a bigger factor enough to where I think like if I were to choose a headphone in that price range, I would go with the HD800 solely based on comfort. Even though I find the overall tonality after EQ and the dynamics better on the clear.
Yeah.
I think though with that, someone mentions the HD800 has some cool tricks, but it's too unnatural for me. And if the HD800 is unnatural for you, and you have a tube amp, that would probably help with that. I think that's what the thing that was my other wow moment with HD800 was everything that was I didn't really think it was unnatural, but it was definitely elevated imaging, and I guess it's definitely
shrill.
Like it pushes in one direction more than another. But I would say you add the HD800 to tubes, especially like the bottlehead crack style or an OTL style, and there's a weird synergy there, man. Like it's like I call it the magic, but it's crazy how that changes the profile. I mean, it's still wide, it's super imagey. It's just like it just fills it out and gives it a little more proper character, I think. Which I'm actually, I need to talk to Taryn about this, but I'm going to send this out, I think, to Chrono to play with. And then once Chrono gets it, I might have him ship it back up to you.
You see how it goes with the Verite.
Yeah, actually, I really enjoy it. The low Z sucks on it, in my opinion, but the high Z is great. And I'll even leave the little skull knobby on there for you guys to play with.
Nice.
But
gotta love that.
Rock and roll skull.
But I want to just get back to that question about the technical performance versus tonal balance thing. The reason why I brought this up was because I think if you look at what is traditionally a really good tuning, I don't know if there's anything better than the Sundara. To be honest, maybe the Ananda, and then if you go into the high end, I think the Clears and the Auteur, I'd have to measure the Auteur, but the Clear is probably the closest to and actually, the Utopia, I should say, is probably pretty normal as well. But for tonal balance, I think, that's already been achieved in the low end, right? And then, as you go up into the crazy high end stuff, it's less about that. Yeah. And it's more about the technical performance and the,
where in
crazy
technical performance is it?
Yeah, a detail or slam or whatever, soundstage for the aria, that kind of stuff. So and HD800 as well. So in my mind, I actually do think that we should be valuing the technical performance at least as much. I mean, yes, it has to be at least a certain good, tonal balance there to sound good. But as long as it's reasonably close, the technical performance is really what is making the difference there for in those different categories that we talked about earlier, the different sort of tiers for performance. And I wish there was an easy way to visually represent that, but there's not.
Yeah, it's a strange mix. But at least I think with tonal balance, you can play around with it a bit more. It's a bit more flexible. You know, you
Yeah.
can play around with different chains. There's also EQ.
Yeah.
I think Tyler, you mentioned somebody. I think it was on the last stream. Somebody who built their entire setup pretty much perfectly around their LCD2.
Yeah, he had a 300K and 300B amp, and I think it was 300B, and he built He specifically chose the tubes for specifically the headphone he had. So and the DAC. I mean, LCD3 is what it was.
Oh, LCD3.
LCD3.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. But see, to me, even if you don't EQ, I think the technical performance stuff is more interesting because, again, as long as it's reasonably close, right? As long as it's not super weird with, like, that was the thing with, like, you know, whether or not it has a rise there at 1K. Like, if it does, okay, we're in business. As long as it's not ridiculously weird. Yeah, right. But the technical performance, I think, matters more because even if you don't EQ, because our brains will eventually normalize the sound signature that it's receiving. Like, eventually again, within reason, like within the tolerances, but the tolerances for our brain's ability to normalize this stuff is surprising. But what you always still get to enjoy to a larger degree is the, you know, dynamics, right, or the engaging qualities,
or the clarity,
detail, or the clarity, right, all that stuff. Yeah, the image clarity. You know, I do think it normalizes that as well to a certain extent, but you know, that's still more fun. That's still more what contributes to the fun aspect of it, I think.
Yeah. So I'm gonna ask.
Because and like, that's the other thing is, like, if you're swapping between headphones, like if you're constantly like, all right, this one sounds more clear, and then you go to another one, okay, not as clear, like that. If you're doing that, you're getting a relative impression of how it is relative to other headphones, which is super valuable. But for anybody who's listened to that same headphone for like an hour, you know, the fact that it's more clear or better than these other headphones is no longer the salient thing, or it's no longer the most interesting thing about it. Whereas if you're evaluating dynamics or detail or soundstage, those elements are still there regardless. So those elements are the more interesting and more engaging things, I think. And that's why, like, when, you know, people come out with their tier list that's based strictly on tonal balance, like, or maybe you see like the ratings scores and stuff like that. It's based strictly on, you know, frequency response and tonal balance. As valuable as that is, and as good as that is, I don't think that's as significant when you think about the fact that, you know, all these different other categories for detail and punch and slam and soundstage are the things that are ultimately going to, you know, be what's most enjoyable about the headphones, you know, over long periods of time when you're listening to it and your brain sort of normalized the sound signature. Anyways, that was my rant tangent over.
That's good. I think it's very accurate too. Like, it's one of those things, especially, you know, with you as you tier up too. So real quick, there's a couple questions in here.
Sure, yeah, let's get into the more of the questions here.
Towards the end, and I just wanted to jump in. One of them was tube amps. Do they cause crossfeed built into them? No, they don't have crossfeed built into them. I think it's just part of the magic of a tube. They give a very holographic kind of imaging just by themselves. So that's why
it's like if your normal listening, like with your solid state, is like here, the tube amp gives you like here, but then it also gives you depth for, you know, this range, right?
Yeah, it does this, like, so, it's like
things pop out differently.
Let's see here. The next one was quick firing these a little bit. DT1990 broke. Is the Sendara a good alternative?
I mean, if you're breaking your DT1990, I don't know if the Sendara is going to hold up.
It
depends what you're doing. Rustling cattle with them.
That's a fair point. Like, DT1990s are pretty sturdy little beasts, man.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tank.
But he asked if a little less jumping around frequency response with the Sendara, would that have less jumping around? I'm assuming he's talking about the treble peaks.
Is he jumping around?
I don't think. Maybe he's jumping around. I don't
know.
Max can let us know.
The Sendara is one of the best measuring, if not the best measuring headphone out there. At least the current revision. Again, this is this whole revision thing that I get in trouble for. But it's really like I don't know if there's. I mean, it's not the smoothest frequency response. There's like some of the planar kind of jaggedness that shows up. And I was talking to Matt Economist about that a while ago, but But for overall, like getting close to the target, it's one of the very best out there. In fact, I think overall, like if we had some sort of index score like ratings, I think that's still the best. I don't know if there's anything that gets closer to the target than that one.
So
yeah, the Sendaro definitely does pretty well when you compare it to the Harman Kardon. I just think I just wish it had slightly less of a dip at 1.5K.
That's it's a little bit, which is funny because that was in the previous version where it was elevated. So
Fair enough. And then the next one is a kind of an interesting one because they ask if any one of you is going to spend over $3,000 on a headphone, so a headphone alone, I'm assuming, which one would you get? And so I've already done that. So that's
over 3,000 or just 3,000.
It says over 3,000. So that,
because then we can just all say Susvara and then go home.
Yeah, because really there's not much in that space.
Yeah,
or
right?
the Utopia, right?
Well, or Utopia, yeah.
But I mean, that's real. Like those are definitely a Susvara, but the Utopia you can get usually pretty regularly below the 4,000.
I think Susvara you can get for
like
4,000 or 5, something like that.
So on my head,
but I want a new one.
I want a new.
I want to use one. I want a brand new one.
Even the new ones, a lot of times I've seen them dip occasionally here and there, but nothing.
If it's right at 3,000, I have a controversial answer for you, but it's a fun one, and it's actually the Focal Stellia.
Oh yeah,
because I would have said actually the ZMF Verite, and then you just EQ and stuff like that. But I think the Focal Stellia, because it's really comfortable.
That's fantastic
as well, and it's closed back, comfortable. I mean, yeah, maybe it's a bit bass focused, but I don't know. I like it. It's got great detail.
Utopia,
so it's a bit more fun in the bass than the Utopia, and they got good punch. So Focal Stellia would be probably my $3,000 pick. Either that or the Verite closed.
I mean, it's under 3 though. So
it's under 3. I know. Yeah. So I know he asked for 3,000.
Like I mean, these are
purple. I need to still get a chance to review them, but
I haven't tried anything above $3,000, so I can't comment.
I'm trying to think. Yeah. So I'd say the Stellia for me, so the SR1A is definitely one. But then the thing with the SR1A though is you have to get a specific amp for it, so that adds to the cost of it as well. And then
I gotta say though, just to interject here a little bit, the DMS modded Diana Phi.
Oh, there you go.
Man, oh man, like that is. As much as like the tuning is it's got that shimmering thing at 10K hertz, and I was pretty critical there. Like for the comfort and the weight and the fact that it's a single-sided, lightweight planar magnetic headphone, the amount of detail and dynamics and all that stuff that it has is nuts. When you fix the tonal balance there with the treble and some of the weirdness in the mids, it's glorious. And nothing else does that kind of comfort with performance at that level. Like it's super unique. Maybe the Susvara is the only other one.
I would say another one would be the Abyss Phi, the latest one. Is it TC?
Oh, the AB1266 TC.
Yeah.
So AB1266 Phi TC.
Phi TC. Yeah. That's which everyone. But I think they're due to have another one soon. Eventually, potentially.
They always are updating revisions and stuff.
Those are fantastic, but those are so finicky to get right on
your
head. Like you have to get them so perfect on your head to get them to sound perfect.
You have to like have somebody hold them here and then walk into them,
and then they do the little adjustments and but
they come with the butler. You buy the headphones and you get the
Abyss DMS.
Butler. DMS is there. That's really why they hired him. Headphone butler.
I mean, he did it. He already did it for Linus. So I mean,
he did it for me when I was at CanJam. He did the adjustment for me and everything. Yeah.
So there you go.
So
DMS.
He's the headphone butler.
He's the headphone butler.
I love that.
It's the new nickname, DMS, the headphone butler. So that would be another one. Those are slammy. Those are extremely slam.
Yeah. And honestly, the Phi was pretty. It had good dynamics as well. Like. Again, with the DMS pads, because you can't like the old like the V2 pads help a bit, but the DMS pads are the way to go for that.
Fair.
There's a question about the LCD2.
This is okay. Take it away, Chrono.
Do you find the LCD2 phaser really worth the extra $200 over the LCD2C and less than $1,000? What do you recommend?
Well, they kind of nailed that. I think these two are going to say the Sendara.
No. The
No,
Ananda. No, just kidding.
well, but
under
no,
1,000.
your comment about the LCD2F over the LCD2 Classic.
Oh, way worth it. Way worth it.
Easily
over the
worth it, right?
LCD2.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I almost. It's just so they're so different in technical performance. At least that is what it sounded like to me. Like to me it just the LCD2C was almost barely representative of the technical performance of the LCD2, which I don't know. Maybe I'm blowing it over out of proportion, but to me, it just sounded like the LCD2F was a lot clearer, better imaging, about the same soundstage, better dynamics.
But really, that's the only difference is the phaser and non-phase. Like one has the phaser and the other one doesn't, right?
Yeah, that's why I was so surprised that they sounded so different to me, and they were both 2020 models.
Yeah. So probably but it's not that much more expensive, right?
It's $200 for the LCD2F more.
So that's $1,000, and then it's like $800 for the Classic, right?
Yeah, and with the F, you also get the hard shell, whatever, like the Pelican style case.
You get that with the GX though, Like that's brilliant.
Yeah, I was gonna say the GX is also another great option.
$800, you get the case, and you get
$900.
$900. Is it $900?
If you're, I think it is. If you're comfortable doing EQ, do you go with the LCD2F over the LCD GX?
That's tough. I personally, I have limited experience with the 2F, but I personally think the GX is a smoother, easier to drive. And
it's lighter and more comfortable.
Yeah, more comfortable.
So I guess that's not really fair.
Yeah, like
it's more comfortable. I think it's a lot more normal out of the box.
Yeah, it's nicer looking too.
It sounds very good.
That smooth cup size.
It's very cool. The magnesium chassis.
The red is hit or miss, but whatever.
But for technical performance, the LCD2F.
LCD2F for technical performance.
What's the weight like on the LCD2F?
It's not that much heavier than the GX. I mean, it's 130 grams. About.
Not heavier? Too much heavier.
Heavier, yeah.
32 grams heavier.
That's potentially make or break if it's like taking it from 450 grams to like 600 grams.
Yeah. No, I think that's enough
for me to go.
470 to 595, somewhere around that.
Still.
Yeah, I mean it's hefty, but we're already talking about hefty headphones.
Yeah.
And it's not the biggest jump. It's not from LCD GX to LCD X, which is 700 grams. That is
that's a bigger jump. Yeah. Although I have to still weigh the LCD X early 2020 and see because I don't have one of those little. I have my regular scale, which always tells me that I'm going the wrong direction for my own weight. But the I need a little scale that I can weigh headphones on. The more sensitive one. Yeah, exactly, right. That's never mind heavy headphones. Jeez, but yeah, I need to measure this LCDX because apparently there's some variance in terms of with the revisions. There's variance in terms of the weight as well. So it might not actually be the 700 grams that's listed in some places. It might actually be the 635 grams, which is that's enough of a difference there. I was thinking about that earlier with the LCD-XC as well, because the LCD-XC, surprisingly, with the Maple is listed at 690 grams. I was thinking, well, it's not really any different from the LCD-X if it's listed at 700 grams. But then it might actually be 635 grams. So there's a bit of a variation there as well. It's worth keeping in mind. And that's enough. That's enough of a difference there, I think. 635 is tolerable. 700 is not.
So real quick, one headphone. Each of us get to pick one under $1,000. Andrew.
Oh man, putting me on the spot.
You have more experience in Chrono, so he can
like including $1,000?
Up to $1,000, yeah.
And up to and including 1,000.
Yeah, up to and including 1,000.
Probably the LCD2F. Okay. But I mean, I was gonna say Sundara, but I think LCD2F.
You're also jumping in so you can get some options in there.
Yeah.
Chrono.
Sorry, I'm really boring. So LCD2F, it just gets really close to the clear and technical performance after EQ. So
yeah, if Metal 571's in the chat, he's gonna be like, my boys are here.
Audeze.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
I don't think he'll watch this afterwards.
He'd moon us and show us his Audeze tattoo on his butt.
But please no.
So I'm gonna go a different route, and I would say I guess it has to be new though, right? Brand new. So I'm going to say brand new. I'd actually go with the Elex, to be honest. Just because I think that's a fun one.
Or a Lear with the
clear pads, or even like the Utopia pads or something.
Yeah.
That's a very good choice.
Yeah, because that I see they don't have the bundle anymore.
No, but they do
but
on occasion.
When they had, I don't know what the stock levels are like.
No, actually, I would go with because every year they do it. The Clear, when it does the $900 sale.
Oh, that's crazy.
You know what I'm talking about? They do every year. They do the $900 sale for the Clear.
Yeah, right? I've seen some places where the Clear Professional is only like $1,200. Yeah, and it's like, whoa, that's pretty tempting.
Yeah.
I like the red too.
I'd love to actually. If I get a Clear again, it'll be the professionals because they just and then on top they have that really nice coil cable that they come with. So
do they? Okay.
Yeah,
well, that's better than
the cable is a lot better.
More professional.
Yeah.
Professionals.
Yeah.
And then there's another question. So real quick, I wanted to answer this gentleman's question. He asked the difference between. Actually, you can talk about this too, Andrew. The ZMF price range from $1,500 ZMFs and below to the jump to the Verités and Verité Close is the dynamic. So for me personally, it's like comparing the going back to Focal, it's like comparing the Clears versus like the Stellia and Utopia. So like that's I think that's
a good comparison.
Like, that's the jump as you're looking at. So yeah, that's
I would agree. The one consideration though, like for me at least, I prefer the Auteur's sounds like overall tonal balance. So I just EQ the Verité to get kind of closer to that. But for technical performance, I think it's definitely the Verité is like in the next category up, right? We were talking about that earlier.
Yep. Okay. Purple is delicious. Okay, no, that's not a question. Purple is delicious. It's amazing. Best color.
Yummy purple.
Comfortable doing EQ. What if I just don't want to do EQ? Well, I mean, EQ is not for everybody. I'm not a big EQ guy.
There's a lot of barriers to EQ, and I think like
barrier of entry.
Yeah, but there are like that's true. The most important of when people are like they're purists and whatnot. I know Terran's in there; he's a purist, which is fine.
Purist,
but there are other barriers for EQ, and one of the most common ones I think is just being too lazy to learn how to do it. But that's not a bad thing. That's just like because you don't have time or you don't want to have to care about that. Like I totally get that.
That's my thought. Is I just don't want to care about it. Like I want to take away the barriers of like even like the SR1A that I have. Like that's sometimes it's like just doing that where I just pulled it out of the thing. I was joking about it with one of the other shows I was on, and it was like the barrier of entry to listening to music, right? Because I just want to get to listening to my music.
Yeah, exactly.
And so if I have to go someplace else, grab something even, and then have to turn on different amps and DACs, and then plug those in, make sure it's set up in my chain properly, and like change, and it's stupid because it takes seconds, but it's enough for me to kind of lose that momentum a little bit, and it's that barrier of entry. So there's that piece too to it. But
or switching to finding your profile.
Finding your and then if you're on like my RME, like which profile was this? Did I even save that profile? Crap! Now I have to go back and redo all the EQ. I mean, there's that too. So but so that's a factor. But I mean, it's once you have it down though, it's not a big difficult thing. And then if you're open to doing like the piece EQ or APO, then it's a lot easier to do it because then you just have it on your digital side here and you're just looking at it
for the Windows users out there. The piece.
For Windows users, and you can just boop, and you can mess it that way. It makes it a little bit easier to play with that way.
But actually, one of the things I don't know about if you're using piece and then you switch to Rune and Rune in exclusive mode.
Oh, but see,
you don't get the piece EQ, so you got to have a
different. You have to make them again in Rune.
Rune's amazing. I love Rune.
I think that there are very valid reasons. There are very valid reasons not to get into EQ, and I think that's just. I think one of the bigger ones, and it sounds. I think sometimes it's like, I understand why it's like, why would I spend $4,000 on something and then EQ it? It's like that's completely valid, and I think it holds some truth. It's like, why would you spend? But at the same time, there's this part of me that, and I think it was because of that one experience I had with the LCD2, where it was like, for me, it was kind of like it changes so much, and there's so much like you can get out of a headphone that I feel like now if I don't EQ it, I'm like, not
seeing the full.
I'm not seeing the full picture of what something's capable of. And if I was actually just like buying something, I feel like I'd be closing my options off if I wasn't open to EQ.
Yeah, it's a more thorough evaluation too when you see what it's capable of. When you see, okay, maybe this isn't to my tuning, but if I do get it to make it my tuning, is this something that I can enjoy, right? And then, you know, maybe the consideration is there for EQ. The one thing I wanted to say though about like the crazy high end stuff, that I do see the comments all the time where people are like, if it's over $1,000, I should expect it to be perfect. And the reality is that no headphone is perfect, like for everybody. So you might find something that's perfect for you above $1,000, sure. But because there is no such thing as like neutral, like that hasn't been figured out for headphones yet. We're getting closer, but it's not. You know, everybody has, you know, their own gain factors to the ear, and you know, we're all normalizing this stuff. You know, there's a lot of variability there, or a lot of different variables there, and so there's never going to be a perfect tuning for everybody. So the notion of if it costs over $1,000, if I'm spending over $1,000, I should expect it to be perfect. I just don't see that as holding any water, because there isn't ever going to be perfect for everybody, regardless. So that's like, I mean, even if you don't want to EQ, that's fine. But I really think like that idea needs to be kind of thrown aside, and you really, instead of thinking if it's over $1,000 it should be perfect, you should maybe think about, okay, what is it that I like, and try and figure that out. Then look at the $1,000 plus range,
synergize,
and then and then figure out, okay, this is like this, or this is like this, and then kind of get it to be, you know, closer to what you actually like.
Yeah, and you can do that via EQ or via,
exactly,
you know,
learn with EQ,
the different chains. You can that can change the sound a lot.
I have a pretty controversial take. I mean, I think people that EQ are just, they don't like their headphones at the end of the day, right? So, no, I'm joking.
I hate my Verite.
I just asked, no headphones. I listen to every headphone with EQ. I've yet to come across something good.
So you hate all your headphones. This is
no, I love them.
I love them. Yeah. There are headphones that have wonky tunings that I don't EQ though.
EQs for people that made purchase mistakes.
Oh, well, you're like, oh, it's frequency response. It's kind of cute. I just want to leave it as it is.
But there is stuff where it's like, where it's like, oh, this is a certain kind of flavor that I kind of like, and I don't want to, you know, mess with it. Yeah. I mean, I would say the Centauri is that headphone, but it measures perfectly anyway. So what do I have to worry about?
And there's another fun talk there. Sorry to jump off the EQ thing real quick. Was there's a question in here that was pretty good, and I'm trying to find it now again.
I saw one about the Empyrean, actually.
Yeah, I saw that too. I was thinking about that too. So there's two that I wanted to touch on. There's one regarding Chrono's channel, by the way, and but the Empyrean one was, people were like, oh, the Empyrean's really, that specific person was saying that it was really good and they really enjoyed it, and they understand why people don't like it. And I think for me personally, I thought it was a little bit, compared to the other headphones in that price bracket specifically, it just didn't compete. So therefore, to me,
it's the price. That's the thing.
Is the problem with that headphone.
But actually,
it's built fantastically. It's super comfortable. That's the thing. It looks amazing, and it does perform. It's just that it's just outperformed by others in its price bracket.
Yeah, I'd agree. Like that's the thing. It also has a surprisingly decent frequency response. Like if you. It's weirdly similar to like the HE1000 from Hi-Fi Man. It's like an HE1000 from Hi-Fi Man with like a more thicker bass, but I think that's just because the bass performance also just isn't on the same level. It's not tight enough. But I can see why people like it. That's the thing.
Yeah, if you like it, then who cares what anybody else thinks?
And like it was actually my like most recommended for like comfort to performance, like regardless of price.
Yeah,
the comfort to performance and build quality and comfort to performance, I think it's right at the top of that like Gaussian, you know, curve,
like,
right?
I'd almost buy it just for the artistry of it, right? Like just the looks alone, or like it's pretty fantastic.
But like for sound as well, I mean, as much as I was finding faults with the sonic performance to the price, I think it's worth paying that extra money for comfort and build quality. Like to me, it's like, you get maybe like
even the Verite, the Z Master.
And it's not like technically poor. It's just not as technically competitive as like an HE1000 SE or, some of those other, more technically detail headphones. But I will also say that the treble detail on the Empyrean, I think, is right up there. Like, and that is the cool thing about that isodynamic hybrid array thing, where it's like you have kind of like a separate trace there for the treble.
Yeah, it's beamed into your ear holes,
which makes so much sense. And I want them to do more of this, because I think, you know, you can really, I mean, again, I think it was overpriced, but like you can really hear the advantage of that design when in the treble, right? And so it you know, it has to do with the way they optimized the trace for treble performance. You know, if the treble performed the way that the rest of the frequency response performs, it would be nowhere near as good. So
well, then the bass is weird because the way that they have the traces, the
Yeah.
bass, it comes to me. That was my weird problem with it too. Is like, one, it was
Yeah.
too beamy to my ears. But two, this is me personally. I don't
Yeah.
think this is like a gospel. This is why it's. But the bass came from up high.
The gospel of Tyler.
Yeah, gospel of Tyler. But the bass came up high and it just threw off my the way I heard them, I think, and I just couldn't get past it. For my personally, couldn't get past that part of it. But it was good.
Yeah.
I mean, I liked them. I thought, and everyone I let try them thought they were fantastic.
I like Android's reaction.
Oh yeah, Android's was.
not.
Oh god, I put them on him, and he was like, he put them on, was just kind of like.
Oh man, yeah. But that's the beauty of the subjective side of this. It's like,
man.
and like for me, when I was evaluating the Empyrean, I found myself being able to listen to it for like so like long listening sessions. I was playing some video games and listening to it, and it was just, there was something really enjoyable about that whole experience.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I think critical analysis might show that, okay, it's not as technically capable as what its price tag would indicate. And I think at the time it was even like $3,500
Yeah,
set.
36,
And now it's
35.
I think it's at 3,000. So I think they did drop it. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. Don't quote me on that. But you know, the experience of using it in a normal situation where you're like wanting to really just sit back and enjoy your music and, you know, all that stuff, it was enjoyable. Like there's no denying it. Yeah. So at least for me.
Yeah, but I agree. And then this is for Chrono, and well, for the, I'm not necessarily a reviewer per se. I like to think of myself as an impressionist. But so one of the questions earlier was, are there going to be more, or why can't we have more lower tier headphone reviews, or that kind of stuff? So kind of, I'm assuming you're talking like sub 500 or like the sub 1000 range. Probably let's stick to that. Actually,
SHP 9600 is.
I'm guessing like sub
the tier. So I'm gonna say the tier
sub 100.
Or actually, here's a good question, Andrew. Like, so when you're talking about the three tiers, because I agree with this, would you call the would you go 3 to 1 and 1 being the highest?
Yeah, 1 being the highest.
Okay.
But so 1 being the highest. But the thing is, like, my tier 3 with the Sundara and the HD6XX. That's already like
why would you need? Yeah, like you don't.
Right.
That's the problem.
Everything below there's like
so
way worse headphones below that.
And there's some gems in there too, for sure.
Oh yeah, K371, DT880, 600 ohm. Like there's
cost Porta Pros with the Axie
Porta Pros. Totally, yeah. There's lots of good stuff down there, but there's also a lot of really bad stuff down there too. Yeah. So, you know,
and then if you go into the IEM world, especially right now, like where they're constantly iterating and going crazy, and they're on the race to the lowest price denominator possible for the highest quality, it seems like.
Yeah, they're killing it with now finally getting to a standardized target curve. That was a big deal. But yeah.
So it's tough. So basically what I'm trying to say, and what I think you're trying to say, is like there's so many options in that space, but there's already a set standard of what most people in that space will just gravitate right off the bat, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah. I think for a lot of people that sorry, go ahead, Chrono.
I think what we would like to do, I think, is just not cover everything just for the sake of going over it, but trying to highlight what we think is really impressive in each category and what we believe will get you, the most bang for buck.
Yeah,
in this case, there's headphones like the Sundara and HD6XX and the 600 family that are just amazing. And now with drop, those kind of headphones, which are I think they perform in a tier above where they're at in terms of price. You become a lot more accessible. So it's like, there is almost it's hard to recommend anything else or want to highlight other stuff. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I was saying to my friends in like one of my gaming discords with the former semi-pro gaming career. Those guys, I was telling them they're idiots for not. I mean, not in. I was actually a lot more mean in that Discord, but I was telling them basically that they're idiots, for not buying the HD6XX because they're spending like, $300. They're like, oh, what's a good pair of headphones under $300 or a good headset under $300? Like, don't even look at $300. Look at the 6XX at $220, or again $350 with the Sendara. But that's the thing, is most people don't know, like if they're just looking at the let's call it the diaspora, even though we're talking about headphones, they look at what's out there, and for the price range, right? And they think what the top dollar that they can spend is going to give them the same performance back, and not realizing that the HD6XX is so much better than everything else out there around that price range, even higher. And then the Sendara is so much the same thing with the Sendara. It's like there are two headphones that everybody should be buying if they're going to be spending around $300 or less, right? Or $350 or less.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, like the Bose QC700 is twice the price of the 6XX, and the HD6XX is like 8 times better in performance.
Exactly. Yeah. So it that's one of the things that I think, like, I look forward to when you find things like that, and you're like, well, this is so much better than everything else out there, because there is so much marketing that tells you, this is the greatest thing ever.
You don't like the Razer shock your face off?
Oh my god,
gaming
I want to try those
with the kitty ears. Don't forget the kitty ears.
Gotta get the kitty ears.
Yeah, we're gonna get the cat ears. We're gonna make it happen. We review some cat ears.
We're gonna have the gaming special on the headphone show at some point soon.
Well, actually, we're at almost 2 hours now. We're at 10 minutes to 2 hours.
Yeah, we should probably
focus in on some more questions. So if you guys have some rapid fire questions for us, we can try and grab them.
I need to head over to the office and pick up some headphones.
Oh, nice. Actually, yeah, I'm actually looking forward to it. I didn't realize what they were until I got them, but they're I'm actually looking forward to playing with. I need to get pictures of them, but I got these ones in.
What was that? Audeze. Oh my goodness, that is one I've really wanted to try for so long, because apparently it's like very similar detail to like the highest end Audeze
stuff. Probably going to you next. So.
Oh man, I really want to try those out. Yeah,
that's awesome.
So I'm looking forward to. Yeah, initially I was like, like they just because it's like, why would I want that in my ear?
Well, I think Sankar thinks I am like overly not happy with Audeze, but I really love Audeze performance. I can't get over the weight, and the i4 kind of alleviates that issue for me, so I'm just like, yes, please.
And that's what it seems like for me, like, or that's from my understanding after researching a little bit, was that the i4 is based on that. Like it's essentially what they tried to do was distill it down into a little thing that goes in your ear as a headphone. Yeah. It's not like they even call it the planar magnetic in-ear headphone, not monitor,
right? And that makes sense, right? Because it's like it really is not like normal IEMs, right? So
that's, I'm looking forward to playing with that. I'm getting pictures, and I'll do a quick probably. Actually, I'm probably gonna do it because I kind of unboxed it in one of the videos yesterday, and
Metal's in here now. He says, LCD i4 uses the film from the LCD 4, but needs a buttload of EQ. It's built into the reveal and cipher
cable. It has a cipher cable with it, so it's pretty cool. So I'll play with that. I'll go through the different. I'll probably.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh no, you're good. I originally was like, but then the more people were like, oh, they got real excited about it. So I'll probably do like a live impression of it at some point. This coming next couple shows. But mostly I'm trying to just get pictures of the dang thing. It looks pretty too. I like the gold on it. It's pretty cool. Or the yellow or orange or whatever.
I love this one for looks. This looks so cool to me.
It reminds me of the Fostex a little bit, like that shiny, like nicely well polished.
Oh, it's so nice. Like this, honestly, I know ZMF is like the wood looks super good, but this I think is almost there, almost on the same level. Like the wood here is not as unique, but the finish that they put on it is really slick.
Yeah, I think it looks really good. I agree.
Really, really good.
It'd be cool if they did it in like a different color. They do different colors, right? Don't they have like a?
Well, they do different backings, and they have the carbon, and I know there's like a snake skin and an alligator skin. There's like some weird ones out there.
The alligator one. I remember that. I was like, what the? And they do the alligator one in different colors too. I think, right? Did they do,
that's right. Alligator one,
like a blue and some.
Yeah. That had more grain. Like if it was like burled wood, Oh
If
my
this was a
God.
different, slightly different color wood.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think like a redder, like a darker
Yeah.
red even would be dope, or even like a darker brown.
Oh, I was gonna
Or if
go
it
with
just
like
had more grain.
more green.
yeah, more
Oh, I
something
can't
more
hear you guys, but
like
here's the
ZMF-ish.
zero coat.
But I like the darker woods like that. Yeah, like
Yeah.
that one. I like that. If they had that kind of backing for the LCD-XC,
so you can
man,
kinda-
I would buy it just to put it on like the stand and then not use it because it's too heavy, or use it for like an hour.
I
and
sent
switch
you
to
the
something
net
else.
workout video so you could wear it.
The workout
Yeah.
video.
You didn't see it. It's 15-minute daily routine of neck
Okay.
workouts.
I'm gonna look at it and then I'll get on that and then I'll see if this is more tolerable after a week, after 2 weeks, after 2 weeks.
2 weeks. 2 weeks. Yeah.
Okay.
hardcore
I
workout.
want those
time.
results.
Yeah.
A closed back eye sign would be cool. Well, they had that. They had that. Didn't they have a closed back eye sign? The sign.
Yes, the sign, not
Yeah,
iSign.
not
iSign
iSign, the sign.
is the iSign 20s.
Oh, the eye. Yeah,
iSign 10, iSign 20, which is like the i3 and the i4.
Mhm.
But they had the sign, which is the
over
on-ear,
Yeah.
on-ear, and which is
Android
on-ear
has, he modified it. He has 2 of them right now, randomly, and he got different pads for them, so they're not on ear anymore. They're over ear.
yeah.
So
Um,
kind of fun.
yeah. If they can make them more comfortable, then those would be great because apparently they have a really good tuning as well.
Mhm.
So
I think those are
that's what
discontinued, aren't they?
they are discontinued, I think. Yeah, but it makes sense. I mean, they've gone to the LCD one now, which is like that's what I wish that sign stuff would have been.
Mhm.
You know, so now we just got to get a
Okay,
closed back
back.
LCD one, and then everybody's gonna buy that, which makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. That's what everyone was hoping the Pinrose was going to be. I think that seemed, at least in the different discussions I was in about it. That's what they were hoping it would be. Let's see, any more? We got
Wow.
5 more minutes.
Metal says I've never liked the XC personally. It was probably the 5 to 6K sibilance peak, but I haven't heard at length outside of a show. In fact, I tried to review one, but one of the sides died during shipping. Oh no!
Oh, wow.
I was gonna say I could ship this. We could
sad.
ship this one over to you, and maybe you can, revise your impressions of that. But that would involve a comeback from
Yeah.
Metal 571.
Yep, carbon.
Yeah, the carbon. But the interesting thing with that is that somehow the carbon fiber one's like heavier.
It's probably.
Well, at least-
I wonder if it's a skin or like a
A wrap.
Oh
wrap.
yeah, but what I wonder though is maybe, like because the specs on the site for the weight, I don't know if that's
accurate.
based on the current revisions of these, because remember, like all this stuff we were talking about the revisions earlier, and so what I really wonder is like if the carbon is actually heavier than the maple, because like that is cognitive dissonance in my mind if they actually made it out of carbon fiber. I don't know. Like, you'd think that the wooden one would be a little heavier, but yeah, just to hear, not to necessarily review. Maybe we could do something like that. But I love this one. Like, to me, as I said in the review, like it's too bright and all that stuff, and it needs EQ, just like many other Audeze headphones. But it doesn't need that much EQ, and all the like things that are challenging to EQ. This is so easy. There's no peaks, narrow peaks or anything like that. You can just drop the treble with the downshelf and you're fine. Yeah, pretty much. I don't see any more.
Yeah.
If there's any more questions, we should probably cut the stream there now that Metal's here. Yes, I get the Unicorn XC. Well, you saw the measurements, right? So it measures pretty, like, well, for an Audeze headphone, it measures really well. Like, yeah. Anyways, yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
I need too much lube. Okay, that's weird. Yeah, I think so. I think we're pretty good, and then I guess I think we can go from there. But yeah, well, that is another thing. Real quick before we go with the last minute is there used to be unicorn Audezes, right? That used to be a thing, like the unicorn Audeze with the special.
Like the LCD4s and the
like even the twos, original twos,
even the
like
twos,
the
yeah,
and stuff. Like there's like actual like unicorns
from well, not actual unicorns.
Well, yeah, they didn't have horn. Like,
It actually came with a horn for a headband.
Yeah.
they came with little hooves and you can put on your hands.
Yeah.
Yep.
Never mind the cat ears. We gotta have the unicorn on top. The Audeze.
Sparkles, they sparkle as they played music too.
It was amazing.
Confetti
They
coming
glowed.
up.
Rainbows shot out. It was amazing.
Yeah. But I think so Metal can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but like I think that there was a lot more unit variation that happened before 2016. So people back then were like, oh, this one is like the thing, right? And since 2016 they've changed the menu, like the process or whatever they did, and now they are a lot more consistent, unless there's a revision like there was with the LCD X from early 2020, right? So unless there's a specific revision for it, but we're not getting as much unit to unit variation as there was in the past, which is what I think the unicorn stuff was in reference to. And so the other thing that that Sankar told me, actually, he said that a lot of the reason for some of the differences that you might see in measurements has way more to do with the pads than the drivers. There's not actually that much variance as far as the drivers go, and it makes sense, because if you think about how thick the pads are, there's so much more potential variability that's contained within this, and like how everything from like the pads that like themselves to actually the way that it's positioned on the rig and how far down the pads are pressed onto the rig. You're trying to, ideally, when you're measuring this stuff, you're trying to simulate what it would be like when you're actually wearing it on your head when it's coupled to your ear. And so in some cases, if you just like rest it there, maybe it's not actually pressing the pad down far enough to what it would actually be like if you were wearing it, on your head. But thankfully these are heavy enough where I think it does in most cases, but maybe there's going to be some sort of variation there as a result of that.
I agree. I think
I could see that.
Pads definitely have a which I think you're talking about that before, like if I can not drop all of these
but like not even like different pads, but like within the same family of pads, because they're so huge, there could be quite a bit of variance for how this
in the manufacturing
fits on a person's
process,
head, and then everything.
There's all sorts of variances and nuance and all that fun stuff in
it's and that Metal says, and probably whatever material is available to make the pads. Definitely a bunch of variation from that pad positional variation. Yeah, exactly, that too.
Even in manufacturing, nothing's ever exactly one-to-one, even in manufacturing, when you're doing
right. Exactly. With stuff like this, especially, right? Stuff like pads and everything.
Yeah,
you're dealing with leather,
which is a unique thing too, right? And they're even just the foam, making the foam. Like you could be exactly. I mean, who knows? Maybe the chemist that was doing the foam, whatever, is slightly different, or who knows? Oh,
yeah.
Personally, how a big pad been under my? Yes. Well, I think with that, fun.
But I might still buy these. I'm just saying. It's so good.
There you go.
Anyway, sorry, that's last on that topic.
Money where your mouth
I have to own an Audeze at some point, right? I'm just not sure which one it's going to be.
Who would have known it would have been the XC though?
I know. That's why I was like, so surprised. I would have, especially after hearing like the LCD2 closed, which was like weird. I was not expecting it to be as good as it is.
It's fair.
Anyways,
well, I think we'll call it a day, ladies and gentlemen, if there's any ladies in there, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for joining, and
thanks for having us.
Have a great have a great rest of your day and the rest of the weekend, and we'll chat later, and everyone else will chat later also. So cheers.
We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in.
Cheers.
Bye.